All right, everybody. Well, welcome once again to the Rec Poker Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Fredlin, and we've got a panel, as always. We got Rob Washam, Steve Olson, Jim Reed, and Stacy Nelson with us today. And, of course, our guest, as you've all been expecting and hoping for, is Maria Ho. We are sponsored by Running Aces Racetrack and Casino, Learn Pro Poker, and website AMP. So without further ado, let's not waste any time. Let's get into this conversation. And here we are with Maria Ho. Maria, welcome to the Rec Poker Podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me. And I know we had some problems. Finally, we're getting on and getting a chance to talk. So I'm super excited because there were some tech issues on both of our sides a couple times. So yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy, right? We kind of kept going back and forth. Oh, I've got an issue. And then you were gracious enough to at least send us a video so our people knew that at least you weren't trying to brush us off.
Right.
No, that was fantastic. So you and I, we had one interaction, and I don't know if you remember this, but this is how you got to be on the show, that we played together in the World Series of Poker, and you sat down at the table and you shoved like 15 big blinds from middle position. I was in the big blind, and I asked you, I said, hey, we're doing a series on women in poker. If I fold, will you come on the podcast? You said yes, which means I should have immediately snapped called. That's what I recall.
Yeah, that's basically how it happened. I mean, I didn't know what you had. I had king queen suited, so it didn't really matter to me. Like, it could have gone either way, but a little secret, even if you didn't fold, I still would have come on. If you called me and busted me, I still would have done it. But
yeah, my buddies were saying it would have been the best thing ever if I had like deuce 7 and I got an interview landed out of deuce 7. But
yeah,
I had ace 10.
So yeah, you folded ace 10.
Well, anyway, so welcome here. Like, let's just start real quick with, you're involved in so many different things. We see you everywhere. You've got this great history of doing all kinds of things. You've had this great interview with Cara Scott, which I'd highly recommend people listen to. But kind of what's the one thing that you want everybody in Rec Poker Nation to know about you? Like, what is that one thing you're like, here's what I'm proud of, here's what I'm working on, here's what y'all should know about me?
I mean, I think what I'm really proud of is honestly just having the opportunity to be at the place where I am in my career to represent poker in a really good light. I feel like for so long, there's been a little bit of a shadow cast on the game. There's that stigma still sometimes. And I feel like whatever it is that I'm doing, whether it's, coming on a podcast with you guys or, trying to take poker a little bit more mainstream and doing some interview that introduces people to the game. I think the only thing that I care about is just being able to portray this really great game in our community in a really good light. And so I think that's a big driving force behind why I am so involved in everything, why I'm always trying to, get my hands in this, that, and the other, because I feel like there's still a lot of work that I think our community can do to spread the word of this game. And I don't want to see it go away. And I want to see it continue to grow in popularity. So yeah, I think that's what I would want people to know about me. Like, everything that I'm up to is important because I have that goal in mind,
I love that. And kind of the one question I would have for you in that regard is, I've seen you do a number of different things, and you're clearly incredibly intelligent. You're incredibly articulate. You're very comfortable in front of the camera, behind the camera, all this stuff. Like, why poker? Like, I'm super curious. Like, of all the things that you could be doing in this world, you're doing poker commentary, poker playing, and all those things. What is it about the game? Is it just opportunity? Is there something that draws you to it?
No, I mean, I was definitely just drawn to poker sheerly because I love the game and I love the strategy behind it. I never really knew that all of these other things would come from it. I definitely, first of all, thank you for saying that I'm good on camera and articulate, because I definitely wasn't always that way. I feel like I used to be terrible in interviews. I was terrible my first broadcast. I feel like I really had to learn along the way. And those were things that I was willing to take on that new challenge, but it was never something that inspired me or motivated me to get into poker. When I first started learning the game and playing, it was before Moneymaker won, actually. So at that time, poker definitely didn't have the popularity that it did now. And you couldn't have really foreseen these type of opportunities that came along, after that. So I just was really, really intrigued by the game. I grew up playing bridge with my grandfather, so I always had that background for card games and strategy games. And then when I discovered poker in college, it was like bridge, but on steroids. It was like 10 times more challenging and exciting and interesting. And of course, the money wasn't the driving factor, but obviously that's not money that you can make playing bridge or any of the other kind of like hobby type games that I was interested in before. So of course that was obviously appealing too. So it was really just purely because I love the game.
I love it, man. You're just such a great ambassador for the game. So thank you for that. As folks that are kind of relatively new to the game, it's fun to have people like you that are paving the way with the platforms that you have. So I want to open it up. We had a number of listeners submit questions, so we'd like to do a few of those. So I'm going to open it up to the panel to ask a couple of the listener questions. Steve-O, do you want to take the first shot?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a question from Josh Schwartz at FPN Colorado. Josh writes, the casinos are making a big push for multiple, rebuy/reentry tournaments to dramatically increase revenues. In some instances, these rebuys go deep into the structure. It is quite the debate on whether it is good for poker, as it definitely pushes out the recreational player. Do you see this trend impacting the decisions recreational players should be making, either in terms of tournaments we play or within these long rebuy structures?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a really good question. I feel like obviously there was a time in our industry where freeze outs were the main type of tournament format. And then, of course, there became this time where, between casinos and tournament directors and, tours, they realized, oh, wait, first of all, we can kind of attract maybe a certain type of player by having these rebuys, namely, it obviously does benefit the pros. And then also we can additionally rake on these reentries, et cetera, et cetera. And it just became all the rage because, I do think there are some pros to that. I think that the idea of showing up for, a tournament and then, if you traveled for it and you get eliminated and there's nothing else to play, then that's the end of your trip. But if you have the chance to re-enter, then of course that kind of makes that trip more worth it, especially if you are paying these expenses to fly out there, et cetera, et cetera. But now, in the last maybe 6 months to a year, there has been such a big pushback actually against these re-entry and these multiple rebuys, these, especially where you can enter so late into the structure where you're so much closer to being in the money actually. And I think that's actually really good for the game and especially good for the recreational players because, it does impact whether or not you should be re-entering because a lot of this is about your skill level, your ROI, and your bankroll considerations. So as a recreational player, you obviously you're not working with the kind of bankroll that maybe, an elite pro is working with. So you can't, endlessly rebuy. You can't afford to get in, especially when the structure doesn't really benefit you or your style of play. If you're, not necessarily good with a short stack and you're not familiar with those situations, then buying in at the point of max late registration where it's, 20 big blind stack that you're working with probably isn't going to benefit you. So I do feel like those are things that recreational players should take into account when they decide if they want to re-enter or maybe even play that tournament at all. But as I said, I do feel like, some of the foremost tournament directors now, like Matt Savage, he is actually structuring a lot of these events and actually becoming a huge proponent of bring back just the simple freeze out style or maybe a single re-entry or, one re-entry per starting flight. So just ways to kind of reel back in just how out of control all of the endless re-entries and rebuys have gotten over the years.
Yeah, and we understand the motivation why they would do it. I mean, that's the thing. There's a realistic tension there. I can see both sides of it for sure. But from a recreational perspective, it is difficult to watch pros kind of fire. It's hard to keep up with that.
Yeah, but I would say for the recreational player, I think that a perspective that they could take is also just remember that, and this will be opponent dependent, but let's say you have a pro at your table that is willing to fire, then it might behoove them to maybe play a little bit tighter and just capitalize on all of the looseness that is happening as a result of some of these pros trying to accumulate a big stack by taking really marginal spots, by gambling a bit on, heavy type boards. And so I think there are things that recreational players can do strategy-wise to counteract it. But of course, I think that now it's really important just to make sure that there's different types of tournaments for everyone, different formats, so that players of, all bankrolls and players, recreational, novices, amateurs, pros alike can all find a tournament that suits them.
Right. And that's what we've been talking about as far as the opportunity, like you talked about. If they're playing, too wild, too crazy, whatever, because that's what they're trying to do is build a stack, that's exploitable. And we have to be willing to exploit that, which is part of why the recreational players can't be playing tournaments above their bankroll comfort, because you need to be able to take those spots. You need to be able to take those pocket nines and get them in against a player like that. And if you're uncomfortable taking those spots, maybe you're playing at too high of a buy-in.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Okay, so good stuff. Great question from Josh. He's one of our big supporters out in Colorado. So thanks, Josh, for the question. Another question from Flurry Chef, at Flurry Chef. I don't know what that means on Twitter. And we don't need to get into detail on this because I'm sure you've been asked it a million times. This is the set of tens fold. And he gets into all the questions or whatever. But my question really is, I watched the video several times, and I'm just so intrigued by this. And for folks who don't know the hand, I will post it in the show notes, because what I would love to know from you is kind of what was the ultimate consideration? I mean, it feels like there's so many things to consider, but like as a recreational player looking at that, I think, a lot of recreational players just say, oh, I've got a set. I'm not going to fold it under any situation.
Right.
And you're sitting there with all of this information. I'm just kind of curious, like what was one or two of the kind of the key linchpin decision points?
Yeah, I think, and as I had mentioned in other interviews that I did about this hand specifically, my main considerations were, I knew what the right thing to do was, but I chose to deviate from what is considered the game theory optimal decision in that point. So I feel like my thought process was, I know what I'm supposed to do. And I know that yes, there is, this percentage, the majority of the time I'm going to be getting it in with the best hand, but I'll be up against hands with quite a bit of equity against my hand. So I knew that for sure. That was like the biggest part in my thought process after I had kind of considered everybody's ranges in that hand. Cause it's a 4-way, 3-bet pot, which doesn't really happen very often. It was fairly deep in a main event. So those scenarios don't really come up very often. So the first thing I wanted to do was obviously just figure out everybody's range, compare where my hand is in comparison to their ranges, and then go from there. So once I figured that out, I knew that I have to call, but I also knew that I'm also at the stage of a tournament where if I were to fold and not take this spot, I would have had, I guess, maybe something in the neighborhood of 50 big blinds in a very good structure. It was the WSOP Europe main event. And I also had a pretty tough table that day, and the day was kind of coming to a close. I believe this hand happened maybe with like one level left in the day. So I knew I would, be getting a redraw. So all of these things about, could I find other spots throughout the course of what I believe was a very good structured tournament with softer spots, and be able to win small pots instead of going in a spot that is higher variance than, I still was the favorite to win the hand as long as nobody had flopped a flush or had a set of jacks,
right?
And so my consideration was, as long as I'm not up against those two types of hands right now, I know that I'm still the favorite to win this hand, but it is still a high variance spot to take. And I just elected to go against what I knew was the game theory optimal thing to do and take the line of playing, in hands that I felt like I have bigger edges in, instead of taking that spot. So, I definitely know that I'm sure that I'm not the only person in poker who's ever kind of thought they wanted to do something and did another thing, or knew that they should have done something. We've all had the moments where we know we should, and in fact, it's actually usually the other way around, where we know we should fold and we call, right?
That's Daniel's thing, right? I'm going to call your hand and then I'm going to call anyway, right?
Exactly. And to me, I think the hardest part was it actually really crossed my mind. I'm on stream, people are going to see me fold. But I'm actually proud. Like, I stand by the fact that I knew that and I still went with what I wanted to do. Because at the end of the day, I tell people this all the time, especially recreational players, you know, it's your money and it's your time and it's how you want to play. Like, that's why I hate when pros maybe give recreational players some flack over their decision making, because I always stand up for them to make their own decision, because it's not, poker shouldn't be about everybody playing the same way or playing quote unquote the right way. Sure, if you want to make money, you should be playing the right way 99% of the time, but like at the end of the day, we are allowed to make our own decisions in that hand. And I didn't want the outside factors of, oh, what are people going to think? Or yes, I know I should do X, but I actually feel in my gut that I want to do Y, and I'm going to be happier with that decision in the long run. And I just decided to do that. And so whether that decision is GTO or not, I'm just proud that I wasn't allowing those other outside factors and voices to get into my own decision-making process, because I think that's really important, to trust yourself in poker. And otherwise, you'll just end up dwelling on it for the rest of that tournament, which also is pretty detrimental to your game. So, you know, I would love to say that I kind of did have the last laugh though, because I did make the final table.
Yeah.
I went into that final table being the chip leader and I ended up finishing 6th, but I still feel like, and you know, it's not about being results oriented, obviously, but I just do remember after that slowly chipping up and it working out. Obviously, I was lucky enough that it did work out, but I just remember chipping up in other spots that didn't require me to risk my tournament life and didn't require me to get it in a spot that I was somewhat unsure of, because my opponent's ranges could be so wide in that spot actually, that I just didn't feel comfortable. But I had all these other situations that came up throughout the course of that tournament that was very comfortable for me. And so I just felt good about that, you know?
Yeah, I love what you said. I would have said like amen like 10 times in the middle there, but I didn't want to interrupt the soundbite. It was just so good. But no, I love everything you said about recreational players and all of us making the decisions, playing the game that we want to play. And, you know, pros berating recreational players is just so bad for the game in any way. But I love, and you know that you're on stream, and I love that you're willing to make that decision, knowing full well that you'd probably take some heat for folding a set of 10s or whatever. But I love that idea too, saying, you know, at this stage in the tournament, I think I have a skill edge, or I think I can chip up, or ICM considerations or whatever. And yeah, you could even be, you could be a favorite there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to get it in. Like, I think that's a consideration that recreational players have to take into account sometimes, is sometimes when you're the favorite, even, it's still okay to fold. You know, I don't know. I just like the guts it took to make that laydown.
Thank you.
Yeah, a fearless fold. I think sometimes a fold, especially when you're on TV, or people are going to see. Sometimes people make an image decision where, I can't actually fold this, and I think it does take guts to do it. So kudos there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love it. Well, let me open it up to the panel. Any questions about strategy or anything else that you guys want to ask Maria? Jim, why don't you go ahead first, and then Rob?
Sure. Well, I've got a question more about being fearless than about strategy. But a bunch of us at the Rec Poker Podcast, we listen to other podcasts, and some of us had the pleasure of listening to Kara Scott's The Heart of Poker. And so I learned something about you this week. I learned that you are a very good friend, because you are friends with Kara in real life. Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
And so you went on the podcast and told a really fun story about your grandmother and how she comforts you. And I won't go into the details, because you'll have to go check out The Heart of Poker for that.
Let's make it clickbait. You guys want to know, but you guys have to send it to Kara.
But you must have known that you were telling a story that was going to be the sort of story that people would ask you about on all the other podcasts around. So like that must have been a fun moment in time. Did you know that you were going to bring that up on the podcast when she booked you for it?
No, and I didn't know what her questions were going to be, and I knew that she had modeled it very differently, her type of questions from traditional poker podcasts that I've done. So I had no idea I was going to come out with that information. But honestly, I love Kara so much, and I love her willingness to try things that are outside of the box. And so I wanted to give her something that I normally would have probably felt really shy and reserved to share. and along the lines of kind of just talking about that hand that I made that fold, it's like, I think 5 years ago, that Maria probably would have been like, maybe I don't tell this story on the podcast, or maybe I don't make that fold with everybody watching. But I do think it just has a lot to do with just growing into who I am and just being like, you know what, I can throw out those nuggets and those tidbits every once in a while, and it's a little embarrassing, but like I'm really glad that I shared that with her, and because we are friends, and it did feel like I was just talking to my friend. So.
Well, it came across that way. So another fearless Maria move there. Thanks,
Rob.
All right, I'm going back to the 2018 World Series of Poker main event. Day 1B, you're on the feature table, and about 3 or 4 to your right is Michael Misraki.
Yeah.
And this guy is you would call him a leg, but he was absolutely a maniac at that table.
Yes.
So I want to understand how you approached that whole dynamic of playing against him. And you were in a good position-wise on him. At least he wasn't directly to your left. So
right.
What was your strategy changes to combat what Michael Misraki was doing?
Yeah, so Michael is just that type of player that he will always put you to the test, and you just have to be ready for it. So there is some like mental preparation when you see somebody like Michael at your table, and you know that if you get involved in hands with him, you're going to have to be willing to make decisions purely based on the fact that he's who he is and he plays a certain style, and everything else can kind of go out the window, So especially in an event like main event, nobody really wants to play big pots if they don't have to, especially on day one. So I think my overall strategy, as it is with players like Mike, and because I've had quite a bit of experience playing with Mike in main events as well, is, I just felt like if I wanted to play hands out of position against him, I was just going to keep my range a little bit stronger. Because I know, even because there's this sense of, okay, if you know that Michael's going to be opening a really wide range, a ton of hands, then a lot of players will have this tendency to really open up their range as well, because they're like, well, my wide range is still going to be better than Michael's wide range. But then you have to realize that if someone's playing very loose, but they're also very aggressive, then you, in order to get to showdown, you're going to need to show up with, some pretty decent hands by the river in order to withstand all the pressure he's going to put on you. So, especially in a tournament like the main event, where you have such a good structure, you don't really need to, in order to beat him, you don't need to join him on that level. So out of position, I just kept my range pretty strong so that I know that I could show up to the river with strong hands and be in situations where I have top pair instead of second pair or third pair, where whether or not to call Michael or not would just be sheerly based on his image, and no longer would I be operating with any of, my game and the game theory that I work with intact. You can't really adjust your game so much to somebody's style just because their style is so on one extreme end of the spectrum. And then I also was, going to flat a ton of my good hands in position against him, because now in position, especially with, I didn't open up my range a lot in position against him necessarily, but I would flat a lot of my hands against him instead of 3-bet, because if he's opening such a wide range and it's very polar, then let's say he's opening the bottom part of his range, and I 3-bet, he's probably just going to fold those. So I actually didn't mind not 3-betting some of my stronger hands in position against him, because I want to keep all of his really weak opens in, because I'm going to have all those dominated. And Michael, in addition to being a little bit loose and very aggressive, he also doesn't like to fold himself. So I felt like I could extract max value from him more post-flop than pre-flop. So those were just some of the things that I, made adjustments for him being at my table. And, there's also this other dynamic of whenever you are on a TV table, people are going to play a little bit differently. And I knew that some people would play in a way where like they wouldn't want to be seen as somebody Mike could bluff. And so in multi-way situations, you also have to be aware of how other people are adjusting to playing against Michael on a TV table, because then that would make certain situations like maybe me overcalling a little bit better. I could overcall in spots that normally I would fold after somebody calls, knowing that if Michael's betting, you know, and he has a high frequency to maybe bluff, then this person's going to call him with a weaker hand. And now my overcall doesn't have to be as strong of a hand anymore. So, you know, those were all things that I had thought about for sure.
Very, very good. I know that as a rec player, you get into those situations a lot because we tend to be a lot tighter than, you know, the loose, aggressive pro that's willing to, like we talked about earlier, throw in 4 or 5 bullets at a you know, in a tournament that we're in there with 1 bullet. So we're playing a lot tighter. So we get ourselves into those situations. So that was some great advice. Very thankful.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was really good. Yeah, we got time for one more, Stacy, if you want to chime in there.
Yeah, that'd be great. Maria, it feels like a lot of the pros we listen to, sometimes it feels like they kind of lose sight of the rec player. And when they're giving advice, they're talking way above our heads. It feels like you really have a thumb on the pulse still of the rec player. With that in mind, are there some things, or like maybe 1, 2 key things that you still see are common rec player mistakes that you come across?
Yeah, I would say that for me, I think some rec players are still maybe limping a little bit too much. I do think that the limp belongs in the game in terms of where poker strategy is at right now and how to implement it. I think having a limping part of your range is important for sure. But I do think that I've seen recreational players turn over hands at Showdown where, to me, it's a very clear raise or fold type hand, and it doesn't really belong in those hands that they should limp with. So I think like maybe a good example is when someone is in late position and they decide to call with a hand like, I don't know, like 9-7 suited or something like that instead of raise when it was unopened before them, because in their mind they're used to maybe calling a raise with those type of hands. So if there's no raise before them, then their thought process shifts to, okay, then maybe I just limp with this hand. But if it's unopened and you're in late position, then there's actually so much more value in raising those type of hands than just calling. So that's kind of one of those spots where it's like, I always think to myself, oh, I you know, if they raised in that situation, I think that probably would have worked out better for them in the end. Or, you know, some clear folds, like, I think sometimes recreational players fall into this trap of, you know, let's say there's a raise and a lot of callers, then all of a sudden certain hands that didn't really look that good to them might all of a sudden look really enticing just because there's like a lot of money in the pot already. And you know, I don't, maybe like a bad ace or something like that, where, you know, if one person raised from early position, everybody folded, then it's like, okay, maybe I could just let this go. But then you're like, oh, well, you know, there's so much money in the pot. And you're not really just thinking anymore about what type of hand you have and how you would normally approach that hand. So I think, yeah, like I think it's just working out those situations where it's a clear fold or a clear raise and kind of not straddling that limping part so much. Because I think that becomes their default a lot. And then I think another thing is maybe just trying too hard to maybe like emulate or implement things that you watch nowadays on stream without really having the theoretical understanding to them. I always tell people, you know, don't do anything that's so out of your comfort zone, and don't do something that you see work for, you know, a player that you really look up to, and then try to do that in your own game, because all of a sudden, you know, that now you're just trying to mimic and imitate the game of another player, and then you're kind of throwing everything you've learned out the window. And I think the most important thing at a poker table is to be comfortable with your decisions. And I think when you're uncomfortable with your decision, like let's say you choose to be more aggressive with a hand and 3-bet something because you saw some pro do it and you 3-bet pre, now all of a sudden you don't really know how to continue post flop because you haven't really had a lot of experience, you know, okay, well, now on the flop, turn the river, what am I supposed to do? And then all of a sudden you end up losing more chips that way. And it's never really that bad necessarily to fold a hand that you don't have to 3-bet. So I just think that there's some mistakes that they make that are just like minor adjustments. But I think nowadays, especially with how much poker content there is out there, I think people are just trying to absorb all this information without really knowing the why behind it. And I don't know if it's that important to just be like doing things that you see that work for other people and expecting the same type of results. But I also just wanted to make the point that I feel like it's such a shame that a lot of pros forget about, the rec players, and whether it's in the way that we speak about poker, whether it's in the way of, making them feel included and sometimes ostracizing them because of bad plays they make or whatever. I mean, rec players are completely the lifeblood of this game, and without recreational players and without people playing in bar leagues and in like the grassroots type places where poker started, but also where poker keeps thriving right now, we wouldn't even be able to have the type of community that we have. So I feel like I've always wanted to like imagine this world where now, there was this period of time where everybody's, holding in such high regard these really young genius, wizard players. But I really think that we need to think more about how we could reach out and appeal more to the rec players and to the amateurs and to people who are just getting started in this game, because so much of the stuff out there is very much over their heads, and we want them to enjoy the game, but they can only enjoy the game if they feel like they have a way of getting better and understanding it. So yeah.
And that's one of the things that we've been trying to do. That's really our target. We talk to a lot of people that are playing home games, barley games, $30 tournaments. Obviously, there's people that are beyond that as well. But that's where it's so great to have people like yourself and Daniel and Fedor and all these people that are willing to give us the time at Rec Poker to come on and talk in a way like you did to actually make the game feel accessible. Even though we know you're operating at these high level sort of things, you're gracious enough to make it accessible, and it inspires a lot of us. It's like, well, maybe I can play that $150 tournament. Maybe I can play the 1,100. Maybe I can go after the 8.1 million, in the main event or whatever it is. And I think that's a huge linchpin. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of recreational players that, we meet a lot of them on a regular basis who are aspiring to just be a little bit better. And when those dreams get shot down by, a very advanced regular player or a pro, that can really have a hindering effect. So that's always our encouragement, is whether it's pros at your level or people playing the mid stakes or whatever it is, welcome us. Welcome us. If we're making big mistakes, then you should want us there. Like it's not in your best interest to make us feel bad for playing these tournaments. So I appreciate you saying that. I mean, it's good for the game. It's good for growing the game and building prize pools as well.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, let's wrap it up here. Obviously, we could talk for hours with you, and I'm not buying for a second that you're ever uncomfortable in front of a camera and not articulate. Like I'm going to need to see some raw footage from back in the day.
There is. Maybe that'll be like on my next like whatever revelation, aside from the Kara story about my grandmother.
Yeah.
It'll be like the evolution of the next thing that I come out with is all of these videos where I'm stumbling over my words. So.
We would love that. That would be so much fun to have access to that and see that. But we'll let you go. But like what's the best way for people to connect with you? Obviously, Google Maria Ho. She's everywhere. But if people say, I just love how she thinks, I'd love to just kind of connect with her and be closer to her journey and what she's doing in the world of poker. What's the best way for people to do that?
Well, I post really regularly on my social media, like on Instagram, Maria_Ho, on Twitter, Maria Ho. I post, some tournament updates, and I post a lot of travel photos of, stops that I go to. And on mariaho.com, there's, past video content, of hands that I played and clips from, a lot of the Poker Go streams that I'm a part of, whether from the playing side or the broadcast side. So you guys can definitely check stuff out over there.
All right. Awesome. Well, we'll let you go there. We're going to continue on the conversation. We have announcements and stuff we do at the end. And obviously you're welcome to stay, but there's really no need for you to stay. So we'll sign off there, but just seriously, a lot of gratitude from the Rec Poker Nation here that you're willing to take the time and hang out with us for a little while.
Well, thank you guys for having me on, and I'd love to come back sometime. So I'm
Sounds
sure
good.
Make that happen. All right.
Careful what you wish for. All right.
Guys.
Take care, Maria.
Bye.
All right, everybody. Well, there she goes, Maria Ho. That was absolutely fantastic. From my perspective, what's your guys' thoughts?
Very articulate, very smart, very understanding of where the poker community is and what is important to the poker community. I think she's a great ambassador for poker. I mean, everything she says, everything she does, she's so genuine and real. Everybody can really get behind her. So I think it was, great talking to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Really gracious. Just a wonderful guest.
Yeah, and that was sort of my perspective when I played with her at the table for maybe an hour or something. I don't know. Part of it is I didn't want to get all in with her because I didn't want either one of us to bust. It was just too much fun to be playing at the same table.
Right.
But honestly, that was my perspective from just the 1 hour even. And you never know, is this people's shtick or whatever? But my experience, her experience here, by all accounts, from people that I've talked to, she's the real deal and she's authentic. And I think she was just delightful. I think it was wonderful to have her on here.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Steve, I have a question for you. When you folded the ace-10, how many bigs did you have?
I had like 20. It was like 3/4 of my stack.
It was she had you covered, but not by much.
Well, I had her covered. She had like 15 bigs. I had like 20 bigs. It was a pretty loose fold, but it was middle position. It wasn't like super late. She was like in the 5 seat. I was in the 9 seat.
Oh, sure.
So
I understand.
It's one of those deals. It was $1,000 buy-in.
Like she's right. I mean, it's not like
it's $1,000 buy-in.
Small blind on you.
No, small blind. I think I just snap called.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Then she did DM me later. It's like, I king queen. I'm like,
But
any other thoughts on the interview, guys, or should we move on to the next?
Card's got to come.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, let's move forward because we've got some a fair amount of announcements here today, and we've moved them to the back end because we like to take our time with them. Rather than rushing through them, because people said,
Sure.
Steve, you always rush through them. So I'm not going to rush through them. But we actually have a pretty big announcement today. I'm actually excited to make this official. You've maybe seen it on Twitter already. But we've been, at Rec Poker, we've been invited to be part of this newly formed Card Player Lifestyle family of podcasts. So the Poker News had a network of podcasts that has since disbanded. And as the torch has been picked up by Robbie Straczynski with Card Player Lifestyle, and he has connected with the Bernard Lee Poker Show, and then he also extended an invitation to Rec Poker to be part of this group of independent poker podcasts that basically have the same mission in mind, which is to grow and learn the game together in community. And so we're really excited about it. It really is quite an honor that they reached out. And so we are joining the Top Pair Home Game Poker Podcast, which is hosted by Robbie Straczynski and Bruce Briggs, and the Bernard Lee Poker Show, hosted by longtime poker known personality Bernard Lee. So really excited about that. I actually had the opportunity to have a quick interview with each of them today as part of the promotional piece and helping their listeners understand who Rec Poker is and what we're all about. And feel really excited about the relationship with those guys. I've had long conversations with both of them about what this is, what it is not. And we're not going to lose any of our independence. We keep doing what we're doing, serving Rec Poker Nation the best way we know how. But hopefully this will help us grow our audience as well and introduce you to more content. As they have cool things that come up on their podcast, we have a chance to share with you guys what those things are, because at the end of the day, we want you to be doing whatever is best for you and your game. And so I think introducing you to some of the things that they're doing is actually a pretty cool thing. So excited about that, guys. I think it's a pretty cool, it's a pretty cool day.
That's a cool day.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun to talk to those guys. And I haven't been around the poker world forever, but the name Bernard Lee is a very well-known name. Robbie and the Card Player Lifestyle, and just have a chance to kind of swap ideas with those guys is a pretty cool deal. So that's it for that deal. We've got our Running Aces Players of the Week and our Binks, as we like to say. So Players of the Week at Running Aces this week, this David Elke.
He was on there last week. He was on there last week too. He's on fire.
He is on fire. So he binked 2 tournaments in the same day. which
Wow.
is not a very common feat at Running Aces. He didn't put them on the Discord channel, so I couldn't actually announce them. But he's on a tear. The big tournament at Running Aces, he also finished, I think, like 12th or 13th or something too. He ran deep. So Dave Elke's on fire. I tell him it's just because when I'm not there, the
Right.
cat's away, the mice will play. So Dave, I'm coming after you again next time I see you. But our own Cheyenne Bhattacharya, you know the name Cheyenne. He's been the one leading our book study, Play Optimal Poker by Andrew Brokus. He finished second in the Player of the Week. Ray Dickerson, James Suvanacek, and Amir Tavane. And now I tweeted Amir on Twitter. I sent him a tweet because I was very disappointed that he finished tied for fourth. Normally only 4 people you have to announce. But when they tie, then there's 5 winners. And now I got to give AT props on the Rec Poker podcast. So AT,
no.
Congratulations. Well done, sir. But a fun group of people there. I played with all of those folks. A very, very good group of players there as well. And the one Bink, so if you want your Bink announced on the Rec Poker podcast, which means you won a tournament, what you have to do is you have to join Discord, which is a free service, a free app that you can jump on. When you win a tournament, post the picture, post the information on our Bink channel, and we will tell the world about you. And the one that we had to report this week is, I'm pretty excited about this, Nels Peterson. So Nels and I go back a ways. Actually, when I started playing poker, I played at the Free Poker Network, and I was in the state tournament, which is kind of a cool thing that they do. They do state and nationals. And I sat by this guy. He had tattoos and a leather jacket, and we started chatting. And he was kind of one of those guys that got me thinking about the game in a different way. Like, there's actually a strategy to this. I thought I got lucky because I had the best cards, you know. And it was interesting. So him and I developed a relationship, talked a lot of strategy. He was in my home game for a while. Just a fantastic dude, loves the game, passionate about the game. But anyway, he binked. He chopped heads up at Grand Casino Mille Lacs in Onamia, Minnesota.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, for $830. He's wearing the Rec Poker hat. So way to go, Nels. And I got to give a shout out too, because I saw on Facebook or Twitter his daughter Emma, who I know a little bit. She just turned 18 and she qualified for the state tournament for FPN as well. So congrats to them. A poker playing family. They all play. All those Nels, all those Petersons play. So congrats there. A couple of other announcements. Rob, do you want to fill us in on kind of what's coming up on Saturday?
Well, Saturday, as everybody knows, is an extra day in 2020 that you'd never have any other year. Well, once every 4 years.
Every 4 years, you get this bonus day.
It's St. Oswald's Day.
St. Oswald's Day.
What is that? I saw you post that. What the heck is that?
Fantastic. I mean, it's such a great time to celebrate. No, actually, we're spending the day at Running Aces.
Yes, sir.
We have the Rec Poker Day at Running Aces from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Come out, have breakfast. We're going to be giving away Lammers. We'll play the $40 tournament. A very good way to introduce yourself to poker and playing in a casino is playing in that little $40 tournament they have. It doesn't cost you a lot of money. A lot of people there just having fun. It's not real serious. So you can come out, you can get familiar with how it all works and have a lot of fun at the same time. There might even be some bounties on some of the Rec Poker guys.
Heck yeah.
There might be.
Heck yeah, bounty on me, baby. Let's go.
There you go.
We're going to have a play and learn a little later. So you can sit down. Everybody will get dealt cards. We'll play a hand out, and then we'll keep our cards, and we'll turn them over at the end and discuss what we did, why we did it, and what maybe we should have done and what we could have done different. And then opportunity to play in the big tournament that day is the Optimum. So fun day of poker, Rec Poker. And remember, it's St. Oswald's Day.
Yeah, I mean, we have so many plans. I know we're not going to be able to implement all of them, but Rob's been part of the planning process too. We're going to have the recording stuff on site, so we'll be getting sound bites from people that want to come over and say hi. We'll have some merchandise, have some info on Rec Poker, but yeah, the bounties. We're gonna surround Jerry Kniff with patches, because he's afraid of the patch people. So if you happen to be seated at Jerry, and I think we're going to get Jerry to play the $40 tournament too. He normally plays the bigger stuff. I was talking to Jason Sell. I was trying to get him to play too. It's a no-go. So he's got kids or something he's got to deal with. But we're going to try to surround
soccer
Jerry.
Practice, I think.
Is that what it was? Yeah. We're going to try to surround Jerry with patch people just to just to annoy him, even though it's just a shtick we have going. But yeah, thanks, Rob, for all your work on that. It's going to be a super fun day. I'm really, really looking forward to it.
And I think someone's going to win a $50 lammer at breakfast, right? And then the tournament's only $40. So unless I'm missing something, there's a real good reason to show up and pay $2 for breakfast, and you get to meet Papa Steve and have a good time chatting about poker before we get started.
Yeah, Papa Steve. Yeah, we're gonna be hanging out from 8 to 10. If you want to buy the breakfast, they got a $2 breakfast before 10 a.m. It's pretty good. And then somebody who's there enters the drawing. Somebody gets a $50 lammer. Play the $40 tournament. Let's go. We'll give another lammer away at the Play and Learn. And then we've got all these door prizes. We're like, all these people say, I got this, I can donate. I got this, I can donate. So we're going to have all kinds of door prizes. We'll have all kinds of stuff to give away. So it should be a good time.
Knitcast approved. Tell Andrew and Nate they can show up.
Nice. Everybody's invited. Hey, well, with Chris is not here today. Jim, do you want to go ahead and give us an update on kind of where we're at with membership content, our seminars, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I'd love to. It's the end of the first month in the themed seminar program at Rec.Poker in 2020. And the theme this month has been stack size and position. So we had a two-part seminar earlier in the month going over the importance of those and some fun examples of how to employ that information at the table. And then we had a hand history and little study session earlier in the month. And all those videos are available in the membership section of Rec.Poker. And all the members can come and have a little chat and a little Q&A this Wednesday, the 26th at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. The link will be in the membership section there as well. And we're going to be talking a lot about ranges, stack sizes, hand ranging, and I'm hoping some of the members will come and bring some of their own ranges, and we can talk about good hands to include or to exclude and things like that. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And I know we're coming up on the first Wednesday of the month, which will be the No Limit Hold'em home game on PokerStars, which is going to be a lot of fun. I have a chance at continuing the Canadian streak in that one because I've actually played No Limit Hold'em before. We'll get into that in a second, Steve. But the next week, of course, will be the second Wednesday of the month, which is our mixed game. And this month is going to be 5-card draw. So I'm hoping Mike, in quotation marks, Mike Patrick, we can make it up for that one and keep the streak alive because we got to get Singing Steve on a strip in Vegas come June. I know I'm not the only person excited about this.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I might have overstepped. I might have overpromised there. I don't think it's going to happen. But
you hear that? You hear that talk, Canadians? He doesn't think it's going to happen.
All right, so you guys put the big call out on Twitter for all the Canadians to come running. There's a couple, but not I don't think Canada.
You just can't hear them because of the snowshoes. It's quiet. We're coming with like cross country skis. It's silent but deadly. We're coming for you.
Yeah.
Steve.
So if a Canadian wins one or the other of the home games in every month up through May, I mean they've done it already, January and February. So I'm getting a
let the record show, right?
You still got to do March, April, May. Then I'm going to be singing "Oh Canada" on the strip in Vegas as loud as I can. So I'm not real worried about it, but I do know the song. People have questioned me. I know the song, so I'm ready to go if need be. But I don't think Canada's up to the task. Come on, Americans or Mexicans or Australians, anybody. It can be anybody. I don't care.
I hope you're hungry. You're going to be eating those words, Steve. I like that Chris is already doing a little recon on like locations. He's doing some location scouting down there.
He's got it figured out where. I know. That's crazy. But yeah, you guys, the mixed game is super fun too. I'm like, and just so you guys know, if you're members, you know this already, but several of us record ourselves playing these games and then put them out in the membership area. And I think, when they're games that we know, I think there's a lot of good information there, especially for newer players on how we're thinking about the game. For those games that we don't know, like deuce to 7, single draw, whatever that was, it's entertaining, I think. So we'll be doing that with 5-card draw. And John Somsky, who's organizing all of it, has actually put together little tutorial videos for each one of these. And so we do have out on YouTube now a little, I think it's like 10 minutes or less, a tutorial on 5-card draw in case that's a new game for you. But yeah, it should be super fun. It's a lot of fun. Other stuff coming up, just to make sure you guys are aware of, if you're getting the newsletter, a lot of this stuff is in there. But we just like to make sure everybody knows what's going on. So Learn Pro Poker is Ryan LaPlante's training site. We have a great relationship with Ryan. Had a chance to actually talk with him in person for about an hour a couple of weeks ago out in Vegas. Fantastic dude. Love what he's doing with the site. We are an affiliate, so if you want to become a member, use our link. But he also just introduced this new program where for absolutely free, no credit card needed, you can get like 10 videos of his just for free, just to try out his site. And we've been putting our affiliate link to that free piece everywhere as well. So check that out. There's nothing to lose there. And it's just really, really good stuff. Also, we're continuing to look at other things that we can offer based on the feedback that people are giving us, what they'd like to see. And so we are actually connected now with a few poker coaches. And so if you are in the market right now for somebody who can give you personal coaching, one-on-one, meet with you either over video or in person, and just kind of work on your game one-on-one, if you have the financial wherewithal to support that, we're developing a stable, I guess, of coaches who can do that. Right now, we've got a couple who are committed to it. Matt Hamilton, who many in Minnesota know is a very top-ranked recreational player, a great mind, a friend of the podcast. And Ryan LaPlante is also available for this as well. So if you're interested in pricing on those things, just reach out to us on that deal. We also have started accepting submissions of videos. So if you have a video of yourself playing and you want it analyzed, or even if you have a video that somebody else put together that you want analyzed, you can submit that to us and we'll actually do analysis on that. And we've got a few different groups of people that are willing to do that. You can either have like the Rec Poker panel do the analysis on that. As we watch it, we give commentary. And we just recently did that for Jeff Klamala. And Jeff was like, man, this is amazing. It's just a glowing review. And so, Jeff, thanks for trusting us with that. And we're glad that you're excited with it. We were really excited to kind of do that breakdown. But we also have Matt Hamilton, Max Havlish, a couple Minnesota guys, Ryan LaPlante. We got people that are available to do that for you. If that sounds interesting, just let us know. We'll fill you in on all the details with that deal. And then we have so many announcements. I'm sorry, but there's just so many cool things coming out.
They're so exciting. You don't have to apologize. It's so exciting.
I have to apologize. I'm taking so long, but it's really good. So the next thing that we have to announce that we'll give more details later is we're forming these communities of bar leagues and home games. And so what that looks like, we'll give you all the details later. We'll give a full, I'll probably do a special episode just on the new things that are coming out. But if you are playing in a home game and you kind of want to be connected to Rec Poker at a little deeper level, we're working that out so you can be connected. You can actually get promotion on the Rec Poker podcast. People that are in your league can be invited to like a one-time home game where we'll do like a player of the year thing. The people that win your league will announce it on the Rec Poker podcast. Same thing with people that are in bar leagues. So we're not replacing bar league networks. We're not replacing home games, any of that kind of stuff. We're just supplementing it. So if you run one of those things, a bar league or a home game, and you're like, man, this would be really cool to tell people if you win this, you'll be announced on the podcast. Let us know. We'll give you all the details on that deal. But watch for more details to come out there. So I'm going to take a breath now and let this is where I love doing the panel, man, because I don't have to talk the whole time, even though I obviously still talk way too much. But Jim, why don't you, how can people connect with us if they're not already connected?
Well, the number one step is to go to rec.poker. That's all you have to type in. Just go and type rec.poker into Google and it'll send you right to us. And once you're there, you can sign up to the weekly newsletter, Twerp, This Week in Rec Poker, be a twerp like me. You can also join our Discord community, which is fantastic. There's all sorts of great hand discussion strategy on there right now. There's a lot of life in poker stuff. We're celebrating Binks together. We're planning WSOP trips. So Discord's been a great place for the Rec Poker community to come together. Of course, at Rec Poker on Twitter, we put a lot of stuff out there. And you can see us on Facebook. We're on SoundCloud and YouTube. But the most important thing you can do is just go to rec.poker, poke around. We've got a ton of free resources there where you can just link to some of our partnered sites that have free stuff there as well. Lots of ways to improve as a player and to get to know other folks that are trying to do the same thing. So good luck with that. And of course, please go to @MariaHo on Twitter and say, hey, we heard you on the Rec Poker podcast, and let her know that you heard her here, and maybe she'll come back sometime soon and give us another great interview.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, a lot of these folks that have been on are like, man, that's really cool that your community, let us know that they heard us. And I think they take notice of that. So if we want to keep getting these great guests, they all know each other. They'll talk to each other. They say, Maria asked Daniel, hey, what was your experience like on Rec Poker? He's like, it was awesome. They were fun. I think that's what we want to hear. So keep supporting us that way by just letting folks know that you liked hearing from them.
And same thing for the Learn Pro Poker affiliate there. Thanks, Steve. We don't edit either on this show, so everyone's going to hear that. But that is a really great. It's completely free, and it when you click our link to go through there, it doesn't cost anybody a penny, but it lets them know that you heard about them through us, and then that's going to keep them sending us good offers and coming on the show, and we benefit from that in a lot of ways. So do reach out, engage, let us know that you're having a good time, and let other people know that you're having a good time here. Yeah.
Assuming you are, which I know you are. If you're still listening to these announcements, you're having a great time because you love the community, right?
Yeah, they're loving it.
Well, let's so next week Jen Shahade is going to be in the house. We've had her on the show before. She'll be back by popular demand. Kind of a chess wizard / poker wizard. Really excited to have her back on. And we covered a lot of stuff, but if you really do want to support what we're doing, become a member. I mean, that's fantastic. $10 a month. $100 a year, you get all this content. I mean, it's when we talk about these seminars, you don't realize the work that Chris is putting into this and the team is putting into this. We're producing like a 3 to 4 hour seminar every month, which is fantastic. And so that's a great benefit. If you don't want to do the membership thing, give us $1 a month on Patreon. That gives us your support, lets us know that you're behind us. But otherwise, just enjoy as much as you want for free, all the stuff that we have out there. We love when people rep the brand. We love the sweatshirts. We love the hats. We got patches on the way, all kinds of cool things happening there. If you want something, we can certainly hook you up. Like, rate, review on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud. Like all of our 888 articles that we post on Twitter. All of this kind of stuff, all of your engagement and interaction is super helpful in terms of supporting what we're doing and as we try to expand and give you more and more opportunities. So with that, well, let me do this. Before I give the official wrap up, Stacy, Steve, Rob, Jim, anything else that you guys want to throw in there that popped in your brain as we've been chatting?
Just, just real quick, kind of a follow-up with the question that I read from Josh. I was looking at the lineup that's been posted thus far for the WSOP this summer, and I don't know how closely you've looked at it, Steve, but there's a lot of the $3,000 to $5,000 events are kind of disappearing, and they're getting replaced with smaller buy-in, either freeze-outs or one re-entry tournaments. And then there's also a lot of high roller stuff getting at it. So I think that's kind of interesting that. I think it's right. It's the high stuff is for the pros, but they are kind of, I think, like Maria said, kind of going back the other way and making the WSOP a lot more accessible for recreational players. So you don't have to plunk down $5,000 or $2,500 to play a tournament anymore, and you don't have to worry about guys being able to buy in for 8 hours.
Yeah, no, that's so. I've heard the same thing. I haven't looked at it all in detail, but I mean, clearly they're seeing those $500 to $1,000 buy-ins, and they're getting these monster fields. So I'm sure it's an attractive thing for them.
Yeah. So I just thought that was a good thing.
Yeah. No, good, Jim.
I think it's a good thing that we've got Steve back because, man, Steve's job is harder than it looks, everybody. I know he makes it look easy up there, but I was sitting in last week, and I'm just glad Steve's back to take over the mantle here. Don't go anywhere, Steve. We need you.
Well, it took me 168 episodes to miss my first one, so hopefully it's another run like that, but I missed out on chatting with Ed Miller, so that kind of sucked. But thanks for sitting in for me. I appreciate that.
Well, I look forward to it in another 3 years or so.
Right. Let's hope so. All right, guys. Well, let's sign off there. Official sponsor, Running Aces, all things rec poker. They got the racetrack, they got the casino, and now they got the hotel. Let's go. Let's get people in town staying there and playing. Thanks for those guys. They've been supporting us from day one. They believed in the vision of rec poker. So thanks to Running Aces. Also, Learn Pro Poker, or however Jim said that before. I don't know. Learn Pro. And also Mark Prashan's website, AMP. they are also sponsoring the show. So that's it, guys. We will catch you next week. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, Steve.